And Daytona KartWeek is nearly upon us. Cup Karts North America opens up their 2023 series a week later at Jacksonville, and Mick Gabriel is here from AEM Karting to join us on the first ever Kart Lounge podcast. Hey, everybody, I'm Keith Shampine. A lot of you might know me from the kart races around the country. I do the MGM live show on a lot of Tuesday nights, and we're trying Kart Lounge live for the first time ever. I'm in my house in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Mick is actually, who just joined us here, Mick is down in Daytona Beach already at his hotel room, set to go to parking day in a couple days and then practice and race days at Daytona KartWeek. He'll be running in the KA senior class in the sprint championships at Daytona. Mick,
I'm good, man. How are you? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I forgot that. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope everybody had a good holiday. I've been kind of in the podcast production mode here the last couple hours. Forgot it was the holidays earlier today. Hopefully, just praying everything goes all right. This is a lot to do to try to produce something like this. I give all the credit in the world to the other media outlets in karting and around the motorsports industry that do this and do it at a high level. We're trying something new, something we probably at Kart Lounge should have done a while ago, but getting it going here, we wanted to get something out before Daytona. WK has been a big supporter of Kart Lounge and everything I've been trying to do in the sport over the last year between their road racing and the sprint, their Manufacturers Cup and Series, and want to thank them for having me down at Daytona. Got a friend of mine, Kenny Pearson's going to be helping me at the sprint track with some photography and social media stuff. I'll be bouncing around back and forth between the road race. I'm going to try to catch some of the bigger races at the road course between class and the 206 classes and the tag class races, do some coverage, and then bounce back over to the sprint. Make sure I'm certainly there for the finals to cover all that stuff. We'll be pumping out Facebook and Instagram and YouTube as well on the Kart Lounge pages. So make sure you follow us on all those platforms, and really looking forward to it. I'll be driving down to Daytona tomorrow, about an 8-hour drive from Charlotte. We say Mick's already down there. Mick, how's the turnout for AEM karting looking? I know you guys have a brand new tent. You guys are probably going to have set up either tomorrow or the next day. How's the team looking? How many drivers do you have lined up for the event and all that?
So for Daytona, we have 8 drivers lined up. We might have 9, but it's looking pretty good so far. We got some new guys on board. A lot of Homestead people coming on. We got some new drivers from the West Coast and returning guys from last year that ran really good, including myself. And yeah, we're looking for some strong runs. So we're really excited. We got our new tent from the West Coast a few weeks ago. Just got back from California, the Colorado area, picking that thing up and doing some work out there. So we're really excited for Daytona. It's one of the best races of the year. And yeah, can't wait, man. It's great to be in Florida this time of year. It's so bad back up north where it's like, -3 and snowing every day. So even 40 down here feels like 80. So I'm pretty happy just to be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it is not a whole lot in Charlotte the last couple days than it's been in the Chicago area. It was a low of like 7 degrees the other night, and it was only about 15 or 20 today, which is really cold for Charlotte. So I'm looking at Daytona too, even though I think it was about in the 30s at Daytona last night. It's pretty cold down.
It's definitely not warm down here. I mean, compared to last year, just hanging out today kind of on the beach and walking around. I mean, you got to be pretty bundled up. So it's not your typical Florida weather down here per se. So
I think it's supposed to warm up later in the week. I think race days is supposed to be in the high 60s, low 70s. So it should get more to typical Florida weather when we start on track action. What is it? Wednesday is practice, and then Thursday and Friday is racing.
yep, yeah. Hopefully it starts warming up some. I mean, it's pretty unseasonably cold up here. So
Yeah, I mean that'll happen. You never this time of year you get there in shorts and it's like 30 degrees, and I mean it certainly happens. I've been there. I've been going down there for Kart Week since I was a young kid. You see 80-degree days and cold days. But you are let's talk about before we talk about Daytona. you're a Cup Karts Grand National champion now. At Newcastle, and you've told me kind of off the record that you possibly retiring from 206 racing at this point after picking up that Newcastle back in October. First off, congratulations on winning that race, the biggest class at Newcastle that weekend in senior medium. You picked up the win, your first of your career, and your dad's kind of joked with you a little bit, like you're almost like you were the Dale Earnhardt of you never quite you won all these races, but you never quite could pick up the big one, and you finally got it back in October. So congrats on that. And is that the end of you running in 206? Are you focusing only in two cycle now, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so we basically figured like we've been trying to win the Grands past couple of years, and we've lost it every way possible. I mean, from winning all the heat races, bowls, we just couldn't get it done for one reason or another, whether it be me just making mistakes or just certain outcomes. So, and then we were finally able to win this year. And basically, after winning, we're just like, what else is there to do in Briggs Racing after winning the Grands? It's not like you're going to get a world final ticket to go anywhere. So, and, basically the way things are going for me right now, I focused mainly my whole summer racing on KA. We got some pretty good results toward the end of the year with that, with USPKS and SCUSA being on the podium the last two times we ran. So we're basically putting all our effort into that and then moving into car racing eventually, going into next year with Formula car racing and possibly some sports car stuff. So, we did Briggs Racing for a little bit. We had a lot of fun with it. But, now that things are growing with our business and things are going really well, I think we all three think it's time to make a change and step up to the next level. So, there'll be times when I'm in a Briggs kart, but not full time. And last year kind of preluded to that. We didn't really put an effort into Briggs Racing last year. We just did it here and there. And we kind of really didn't even prepare to run the Grands. It was all last minute. I ran a 2-year-old go-kart that was probably bent about 4 millimeter most of the weekend and had to jump on it, back going. And, luckily it all worked out in the end where I just positioned myself in the right spot and kind of let, Warren and Overbeck burn their stuff up. And, I came through in the end, but it just wasn't, it's not been our main focus. Winning 4 titles in CKNA2 and the Grands, we just don't figure there's much else to do in Briggs Racing. So it's basically time to move on. And we love 2-cycle racing and, looking into cars, that's kind of the next step too. So, yeah.
What car is it? Like an oval track, or are we talking sports car, road course stuff?
So we have a Formula car right now. It's a Formula Atlantic car. I'm basically going to use it to practice and go into getting my SCCA license, start doing more racing with that. And that's kind of going to be the foundation of that. And then I might move into sports cars eventually after I do enough schooling and, get going on that. So that's going to be the main focus, plus K racing, like a full USPKS schedule. So
good deal. Now, well, let's shift to talk about the KA class. It's the biggest division. We're going to pull up I'm going to do a screen share here in a minute and pull up the entry list and kind of go through a few of these classes and get Mick's thoughts on KA and the 206 division. On a sprint track, kind of a unique deal. It's on the infield of Daytona International Speedway, obviously, and to my knowledge, it's the only time that is raced on. I mean, I'm sure they park, cars and stuff on it and people camp out track during Daytona 500 and stuff like that. But I don't know. There's probably some tests here and there depending on who you are and if you can get in there and test on it. I think in the past able to do that, but really the only race of the year at Daytona. It's one of the in karting, or in sprint karting anyway, we can say that it's the only time of the year, those 3 days is the only time you see karts on the track. Talk about the track. I mean, it's a pretty big draw. I mean, the Man Cup series back in its heyday got a really good fields down there back when it was, Yamaha Super was the big class and tag was pretty big and stuff. And now there's going to be a 40 kart field in KA Senior. I mean, that's certainly nothing to to shake your head at. I mean, that's a pretty good field, but you don't see really a ton of the heavy hitters, maybe from SCUSA and PKS running it. What are your expectations going down there in the K? And how's that track? Is it a top level track, or is it kind of more of a old school track? Just give me your thoughts on I guess it's about a half mile Daytona.
Yeah, I mean the track I wouldn't call it a Newcastle or a GoPro. It's definitely old school. It's pretty sandy and dusty. Like the first two sessions are almost a throwaway. You're not really gonna go after it too much with working on the kart or the engine. I mean, you're just gonna work on your driving and mainly adapt to the conditions because that place is it's always changing, especially on practice day. And then once it gets good, it's kind of there, and you just race it out after that. But it's not. I wouldn't call it a top notch go kart track, but it's definitely pretty down to earth, old school. I mean, it's still a driver's track. You still got to find your way around there the best way possible, but it's not one of these extremely nice facilities like a Newcastle, a GoPro, NOLA, places like that where it's all laid out and you got everything you would ever want in a go kart track. But I like the place. I mean, it's the more you come here, the better you get because obviously you can't test or practice. You just got to keep coming down every year until you just eventually figure it out because there are some tricks to it. And, it took me a couple tries to win down here and figure it out and just be consistently up front. So, I mean, it's a place like Charlotte where you just got to keep coming down to figure it out. And that's really about it. I don't really personally think there's much you could do with the go-kart down here. It's 90% driver. I mean, you're driver and hitting the sweet spot in the gearing, and that's it. When it comes to KA, I'm looking for definitely a podium and going for a victory. Like I said before, we've been on the podium the past two national events we've run in it, and we've done tons of testing before it got super cold in November, and just looking for a really good run up front. So we'll
So
see
we're
what
gonna.
happens.
I'm sure you're gonna be. I'd imagine you're gonna be one of the top guys in the class. Let me and do a screen share here, and we'll go back to those classes here. We got 38 pre-entries. There, I follow the four cycle, the 206 a lot closer than I follow the cycle stuff. So I know a few of these names. I mean, Bailiff is a top driver. I'm sure he'll be pretty good. I know Adam Brickley's pretty decent. Who on this list here stands out to you as who you expect to be top competition K senior at Daytona?
Definitely Christian Miles. The last USPKS race I ran, himself, Alex Stanfield, and myself had a really good battle for the win. I think on the first day. Second day, I think we were all battling too. Christian Miles is very fast driver. Have a lot of respect for him. He's definitely going to be one to watch. So definitely, he on my radar. He's definitely one of the guys you got to go out there and beat. So Adam Maxwell is pretty fast at Daytona. He'll be quick. And looking through the rest of the list, I don't recognize too many other guys. Emerson Reed, he's definitely very fast. Can't really, yeah, I don't really know much of anybody else on the list, but definitely Christian Miles and Emerson Reed, in my opinion, will be very quick. Maxwell could be up there too if they get it going. So
I got you. What about Overbeck? He's been coming on pretty decent. I saw him at GoPro in the K class at their last club race, and he ran top three that weekend on the at GoPro. So I'd imagine he'll be top five up there. I would think.
yeah, he could be good. He's been kind of up and down, but we'll see this coming weekend. So, but I mean, I kind of know who I'm looking to beat. So
Now, class pays $2,500 to win the overall. I mean, that's pretty good pay. I mean, does that change your strategy at all? Does it even enter your mind? Or
I don't even think about it. It ain't about the money, man. It's about the hardware. So I mean, if money influences you in a race to make poor decisions or race a different way, your mind's not right. So it's business as usual.
I understand that makes sense. We'll go back up here to the juniors. We were talking about it, these classes on the air. Let's go. Where are we here? A junior, 29 entries, so they should have a solid 30 cart field in that division. One name that jumps out, Hewitt, driver in the country the last year or two. I think it'd be hard to argue he would. Hard to say he's not the best cadet driver in the country the last couple years. He'll be running the KA Junior this weekend. What do you think about Isaac and some of these other guys on this list?
I think Isaac Malkiewicz and Eli Warren will probably be the two top guys to beat. I mean, Eli Warren's from around where I am, and he's lights out 90% of the time. I mean, he won the Grands too, and he's very fast in KA Junior. I think Eli Warren, it's going to be between him and Malkiewicz. I mean, Malkiewicz just moved up. He's got tons of speed. But I think if you give the racecraft advantage, the experience advantage, Eli Warren. So I would go with Warren over him now, but I mean, I think it's going to be a great battle between those two. Those two kids are extremely talented. So Carter McMurray's probably going to be pretty good. And don't really recognize those other guys. If you scroll up a little bit more,
Yeah,
I think there's a couple guys up there that. Yeah,
I've
Sarah
seen.
Bradley's pretty fast, and like Cameron Brinkman, he'll definitely be really quick too. He's another guy from around our area, and he's super fast. So those four guys will be definitely top contenders.
He's pretty good. The Aitken brothers, they're twin brothers out of Florida. I've seen them run two cycle. I've seen them run four cycle. They're on Coyotes and 206 stuff. They're pretty decent. Let's scroll down the list. I've seen Cody Lindstrom race. I know he's pretty quick. Roman McCurdy, I've seen him at a Man Cup race, but there weren't a whole lot of. But yeah, I think you're probably right. Eli Warren and Isaac Melchior should be the two to watch, or I would tag them as the favorites anyway. He's obviously quick too, so we'll see what he can do. There's a bunch of these same drivers running 206 junior. Isaac Melkiewicz not on this list. I was kind of hoping to see him run in the 206 junior. Maybe he'll enter at the track. Maybe he won't. But looking at the list here, if we can get most of it in the screen, what do you think about the 206 junior division?
Um, it's probably gonna be really hard to top Carter McMurray. He's been notoriously better in the two cycle. I mean, I'm sorry, the four cycle than the two cycle. So he's gonna be really hard to beat. Eli Warren, though, in my mind, is probably the favorite. I mean, he won the Grands, and he's probably the best 206 junior driver in the country now, easily. So between Warren, Derek Wargo, he's moving up. He was really fast in cadet, and Carter McMurray. Those three are going to be extremely fast. Our guy Lucas Speck, he just swept SSKC the other week in Miami. So if I could get him dialed in to the new track, because he's never really been any otherwhere beside Homestead. If I get his driving dialed in, then maybe he'll be close to those guys' bumpers. So we're hoping for that. But if I had to go with one guy, it'd probably be Eli Warren. I mean, he's got a shot sweeping both classes, in my opinion. So
For sure. I want to mention Derek run at Jacksonville at the Gold Cup race back in November, and that was his first time running in junior after he moved up from cadets. He ran top, I think, possibly in cadet at the Grands at Newcastle about a month. And he came out, and it was a pretty decent field at the Gold Cup race in 206 junior. There was about 15 carts in the class, and Wargo was up front pretty much every session running against drivers and kids that had definitely more experience than him in the junior class. So I don't know if he's run Daytona at all before this upcoming week, but he's one I would keep an eye. Ronnie Clyde is a pretty good driver. He's out of the 103rd Street, locally up there at Jacksonville. Again, I don't know if he has any experience at Daytona. No, he doesn't have any experience at Daytona. I talked to him last week, but he was hoping to adapt pretty quick and run up front. So I'll keep an eye on him. And again, there's keep an eye on them too. I mean, and again, Jared Clark, he's pretty quick, right, Mickey? We mentioned him in the pre talk show there.
Yep. Yeah, he's pretty fast. I mean, he's got some sleepers that I just don't know very well, but I'm sure that class is really competitive, and I'm sure you'll end up with a pretty tight knit pack up front between the top 7 to 8 guys. Yeah, this should be a really good race.
Sure. Let's keep scrolling down. I'm trying to produce and kind of host the show all at the same time. So definitely not ideal, but still happy to be doing this. Something we should have started doing a long time ago. So 206 senior 360, the class, the medium version of 206 senior, a class Mick normally run. He's going to sit it out here and help some of his customers while he runs the KA. This class didn't have a whole lot of entries up until about a couple weeks before pre-entry closed, and WKA upped the ante a little bit. They were going to pay $500 to win, and said if they could get 24 full field of 24, they'd pay $1,000 to win. So they surpassed that. So this class will pay $1,000 to the overall winner. I would expect some more at-track entry. So you should have about a 35 to 40 cart field into a 6 360. And again, there's a lot of people on this list. I honestly, what is kind of cool about Daytona is you get a lot of people coming to this race because they want to race at Daytona International Speedway, whether it's the big 3.56 mile super speedway road course, or if it's just at the sprint or the dirt track. Daytona. So, you might have a local, a bunch of local racers that only run their local track. They'll come down to Daytona for like a one-off deal. So again, I don't recognize any names. I know you can't see the entire entry list on the screen. We'll scroll down a little bit. What are the names that pop out to you here in the 206 Senior 360 class, Mick?
Well, I mean, being that I've raced all these guys before, one way or another. I mean, Colin Warren, hands down the favorite. Um, Overbeck's very fast, no doubt. He's got something figured out in Briggs, and I respect how good they are in it. But Colin Warren, I mean, dude's got it figured out. His racecraft is so superior in this class, and he's just a total fox, man. I mean, anytime he's entered, it's on. So Colin Warren's definitely, he would be my pick. Overbeck will be right there, no doubt, like he always is. Gabe Sessler, one of our guys, he'll be up. He'll be up in the front. Depends how his racecraft fares. If he'll challenge Colin or James, but he'll have some speed, no doubt. Jake Sessler, he had a podium last year, so he'll definitely be toward the front. Another name on this list, Christian Miles. I mean, look out for him. I mean, I haven't seen him ever race a Briggs, but for how talented he is, I mean, you can he could easily win too. So it depends if he figures out the racecraft coming from 2 cycle, because it's totally different. I mean, you can't be quite as aggressive in Briggs. It's just timing your move out the right way and just hanging out till you need to make it. So if he could figure that out, he could definitely challenge Warren or Overbeck easily. Adam Maxwell is always fast at Daytona. You can never count him out. If they get the MGM dialed in, he'll definitely be in the front, no doubt. McKeithen, he's very fast. I've only raced him one time, but he's got tons of speed. But he's kind of young, could come down to racecraft. We got a couple other guys in here. Eli Fox, another very fast guy from the north that I know. I think he's on a new gen cart for this race. Usually he's on the MGM, but he could be pretty fast if they get dialed in. Hunter Fox is fast in Florida. Um, Nick Sobiek, I don't think he's ever raced Daytona in the CIK class, but if they get figured out, he could be up there too. I mean, you got probably easily 8 to 10 guys that can win this race, realistically. So depending on how they manage it, the guy that manages the race the best, 100% of the time wins in Briggs. So, and you don't have to have the fastest equipment to win this class. That's what makes the racing so great. I mean, everybody's so close on speed. I mean, everybody's equipment's so good. It's just going to come down to who manages it, who nails tire pressure to that last degree, and the driver that's just the smartest in the end without losing any time. And when it comes to that, I think Colin Warren he's out of all the guys I've raced, he's the most impressive. So, but I definitely respect a lot of these guys on the entry list. They're all very, very fast and very talented. So,
yeah,
good field.
It's a pretty good field. I mean, you got some interesting stories. Colin Warren's going to
think that's pretty much a given.
I'd tag him as the favorite. And if it wasn't Colin Warren, I mean, I would say James Overbeck would probably be the other favorite. He's been on a tear on the Coyotes since he switched over, but there a couple times. I know he did run a SSKC race earlier in the summer. He was really hot at those last couple rounds at GoPro. I certainly wouldn't expect anything different at Daytona. Christian Miles, a driver I'm not fully familiar with. I know he's more of a two-cycle driver, but he's on a Coyote as well. Christopher McKeithen's an interesting story because he's on a Coyote, but he's just moving up here from the definitely an aggressive young driver, a good kid too. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does in kind of more of a stacked field. Your boys, Gabe and Jake Sessler, I wouldn't count either one of them last year, and this field this year definitely looks like it's a little stronger than last year's field, but it seemed like they were front. I know you won one of the classes, and you said Gabe was right on you and almost made a pass for the win. I think you told me about a week ago. Certainly wouldn't count out Gabe or Jake Sessler, and Gabe and Jake are both going to be running a Kart Lounge GoPro as well, so we'll be getting some good footage from them at Daytona, so that'll be cool. Maxwell, he's been really good at Daytona. When I was down there in 2020, he ran right up front. So on the
surprised if he's in the
mix. So BX, he's a good runner. Unless she ran locally a little bit, but I know she's been in the junior class. Hunter Fox, Eli Fox, those a bunch of these names up here I'm not quite as familiar with, but yeah, I would say your two favorites would probably be Colin Warren and James Over. There's about 7 or 8 drivers that could potentially be right there. Cameron Reed's pretty good too. Keep an eye on her. I've seen her race since, and wouldn't be surprised one bit if she's in the mix as well. We'll talk about Masters here in a minute. Not a huge field for CIK 206 Masters, but the 380 class, a lot of the same. 360. What do you any different thoughts in the 380 class? One thing I will mention is Mo Edmondson on the MGM. He's not on the list. I have talked to Elmer, and they are coming, so that'll be another heavy hitter in the 380 class at least. What are your thoughts on this class, Mick?
Yeah, I think you're going to be about the same story. Colin Warren and Overbeck probably going for the win. Maxwell is pretty stout and heavy. I think he ran third at the Grands and heavy, so he'll be up front. He could be a sleeper for the win there. He's pretty aggressive, and if it comes down to a last lap move, he's probably going to make it. So, yeah, I haven't seen Overbeck run heavy very often, but I'm sure he'll be right there. McKeithen, he'll be fast. Gabe and Jake, obviously. Gabe was really strong and heavy last year with me, and man, that's another good field. I think you got about 6-7 guys that can win that race. Cameron Reed, I guess, could be right there if you think he's pretty good. So I'll take your word for that. Bryce Downs could be close. We've been working with him to get faster. So he's under our tent, so he can be pretty strong. And yeah, I mean, I see Jack Sukina's on that list. I think he's from GoPro. He was pretty fast one time I raced him at Stars. So be interesting to see if he'll adapt to Daytona. And Matt Del Sol, I know he's run heavy quite a bit down south. He was pretty good in Cup Kart South for a while in the senior heavy class. So I know he struggled a little bit medium at the Grands, but I think in heavy he can be a contender. But safe pick is always Colin Warren, man.
Yeah, that's probably who I'd put my money on. But it'll come down to the last lap, I'm sure. So anything can happen. But Colin Warren, he knows his racecraft. I mean, you know that. I mean, you watch. He runs up front, and he always seems to. It's outsmart the guy he's running against. Not necessarily you, Mick, but other drivers. It's like it always seems like he can get that extra inch or two on the last couple corners.
Yeah, Collins, he's so seamless when he runs up front. He knows what he's doing, man. I've had migraine headaches trying to beat that guy. He's so smooth when it comes to racecraft. I mean, I have so much respect for him and Dave at TS. I mean, they have an amazing program, but when it comes down to the last few laps, I mean, Colin Warren's got it together. So I mean, it takes a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to beat him in the last couple of laps. So not shortcutting anybody else on the list, but when it comes to the last couple of laps, look out. He doesn't have to be the fastest to figure it out, and that's what makes him so dangerous. So it doesn't matter where he qualifies or where he starts. He's going to get it done up here.
Yeah, and Overbeck, I'm sure he'll be. James Insco, a little surprised him just in the heavy class. He's typically a master driver, but I guess he's going to give the 380s a shot, and I don't see him on the Masters list. Short field in Masters, but there are some pretty good drivers on it. Hopefully, they'll get some more at-track entries and at least get up to a double-digit field. What do you? Dick Timmons is one of my buddies. I'm going to give him a shout out. This will be, I think, his second year running the Daytona Sprint track on an MGM, but he's typically a dirt racer. He's won at Daytona track. So we'll keep an eye on Dick Timmons, Nitro Dick. We're going to talk about here in Masters. You think, Mick?
It's hard to ignore Jorge. Jorge's been pretty good the past couple of months. And he's been getting it free enough to get around the track pretty fast. So I think he's got it figured out, and he's going to be pretty tough. Phil Pignataro is always top contender, at least in Florida. So I think he's on OTK too, so he'll definitely be up front. Jamie Bradford, I know him pretty well. He's from my area. Top runner in Newcastle. Haven't really seen him leave the Midwest very often, so I'm interested to see how he adapts to the Daytona surface and all that. Coming from Newcastle, it's totally different. So I think if he adapts, he'll be up front. I think you'll have a pretty good race between Jamie Bradford, Pignataro, Ruiz, and maybe your boy Dick Timmons. So.
Surprising, not more Masters there. That's only 8 drivers in there. That's a surprise, because even in the Gold Cup races, they were getting probably 8 entries, at least at most of them. Or they call it Super Masters in WKA, the 50 and up. That's Super Masters, and they were regular Masters. They couldn't offer the class at Daytona, to my understanding, because number one, you don't have a ton of daylight this time of year at any track, and there's not. So daylight's an issue, so you can't just run like 15 classes a day. And there's been an agreement with Margay to run the Ignites at Daytona, and why there's not a Legends class at Daytona this year is because a commitment. We'll scroll down here to I've seen this class run a little bit here and there. It's obviously a really awesome package that Keith Freber and came up with, and they've got a good field. They've got 28 entries for the first day. Quick Mick, what do you who do you like in the Ignite Senior Division as we scroll through?
Probably Evan Stommer. I mean, I've run Margay Ignite one time, and he was pretty hard to deal with. So Evan Stommer, for how much time he's got on Ignite Kart and how well he knows how to drive that tire and that package, he's probably the easy favorite. Hunter Fox is really fast in Ignite, so he'll probably be up there. He's pretty good at Daytona. The Taylor brothers, I mean, I don't know how good they really are in karts, but they got some big names, so they could possibly be up there. Nick Stobiak, that's another easy pick in Ignite. He's always ultra quick, so shout out to Nick. He's gonna be fast. So I think between Nick and Evan, it's gonna be pretty tight. Jeff Jewell, that's kind of a name I remember when I was a little boy. He was pretty fast when I was growing up. So I don't know if he's washed up or rusty anymore, but I mean he could be. But yeah, no. I think you got about 5 or 6 guys that could possibly win that race. So I'm sure it'll be a tough field. One thing I'm kind of surprised though too in the 360 class that Dylan at Munson's not entered. Um, I think you're taking a big hitter off the list not having him there.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know what the deal is. I had talked to Paul Rice a couple weeks ago. Talk with him possibly running over at the road race track to give Zach Linzel partner in the 206 class on the road course because I know Zach is entered at the road race instead of the sprint race. So I'm not sure if Dylan's going to be running out at the road course or if he's just going to be sitting it out the next week at the Cup Karts race at Jacksonville. So we'll kind of. I probably should have done a little more proactive research run so we could have confirmation on this show. But it'll be interesting to see if he shows up or not. Which that's not a bad transition. We mentioned the Cup Karts race. So last year, they had their first annual Winter Nationals. It's not actually the first annual. It was their first ever Winter Nationals. Annual one this year. So last year was a good deal because it butted up to Daytona is always on the 27th through the 30th. So sometimes it's a midweek show, sometimes it's a little bit of each. This week it's a midweek show. It'll be done on Friday. Cup Karts opted not to Jacksonville that just Saturday would be the first. They're gonna wait it out a week and run the following weekend, the 6th through the 8th. So it doesn't line up, quite as with people being able to just leave Daytona and drive up, 90 up to Jacksonville and drop their trailer off, as soon as Daytona's over and then practice the next day. That was kind of a cool deal last year. I know that there was probably, I know they did get probably some complaint, people who ran both Daytona and Jacksonville about just the amount of time you're at a go-kart track. Take, weeks out of their life all the time unless you're doing it for a living to hang kart track. So this year it's different. So there's a week in between races, and you obviously know that there was people, especially up in your neck of the woods, that had to pick and choose. They had to choose whether to go to Daytona or if they were going to sit out Daytona and just go to the Cup Karts race a week later. So from your perspective, I mean, you deal with a lot of people, a lot of customers. What did you see? Like, did you give people the option to run either Daytona or Jack? What they take you up on more? Because I know you're going to be at Jacksonville the following week. How'd that scenario all work out for AEM karting?
Yeah, so it was kind of easy for most people because Daytona, it's always a big attraction every year. It's the aura of the event, and it's basically a landmark. So everybody kind of wants to run that. Jacksonville, I mean, people look at the place and they're like, it's not really technical. Not really sure if it's worth the trip or the money. I'll rather go to Daytona. That's 90% of the responses I get. It's basically that. I mean, I think if Jacksonville was a little bit more technical and the amenities were a little bit better, I think you'd have more people doubling down. But the the weaker racing at Daytona, a lot of people are attracted to it. There's a lot to do around here, outside the track, between amenities, going to the beach, tons of places to eat and all that. I mean, it's a tourist attraction. It's super easy for people to commit to this event. Literally like 6-7 months in advance. They're like, yeah, I want to do Daytona. So I mean, Jacksonville is always kind of a hard pull. It's just, it creates good racing over there at Jacksonville, but the amenities and the area, it's hard to convince a Masters guy that's on our team or, an older guy that runs with us with a family, I'm going to go spend a week in Florida in either Jacksonville or Daytona, and they're always going to pick Daytona over it because basically, they get to race at a historical track and the amenities and everything else involved. I mean, you got to think about that side of it when you're dealing with customers. So they got a family to entertain. They want to do things other than race. I mean, not all of them are super hardcore and wanting to just go there and win. You got to factor in all that stuff too. And I think that's where it comes down to, at least on our side. I think some other people on the team side too. So
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it makes it tough, but having a race so close to Daytona, I know the two organizations aren't like partners or anything. So Cup Carts, they can put on a race wherever they want to, and they can. They've certainly earned that over the last 5 or 10 years that they've been doing their series. And they want to go to Jacksonville for a lot of people that are going to that race. I mean, and I know people that are skipping. I know some people that are skipping Daytona for whatever they're going to Jacksonville instead. So it probably costs. It certainly doesn't help Daytona to have a race that uh, that close to KartWeek. I'm sure it doesn't help the Daytona turnout, even though they still have pretty good numbers. Um, and I don't know if maybe you backed it up to like a February date, if that would make any difference. Who they still have the same kind of a similar situation, or they're probably still going to go to one or the other. I would think whether it's in January, whether a Cup Carts race at Jacksonville's in January.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think you're still going to have the same group of people, but it seems like Jacksonville lately is a bit overused. Personally, I wish they would go somewhere else for the Winter Nats. Still stay in the South, but maybe somewhere else like a GoPro or a Kershaw, Atlanta Motorsports Park. I think Jacksonville is just a bit overused, and I mean, Newcastle's kind of gotten like that lately, where it's a little overused, but it still draws awesome numbers, and the racing's amazing there. So, um, it's one of those things. But Daytona is the yearly event, and you're always going to draw people to it because it's once a year. So, that's kind of the case on that.
For sure. Yeah, I mean it's been a draw for. This one they did was back because I listened to the e-karting show the other. I think it was 1974 was the first time they had Daytona. And of course, back then it was just the road course. There wasn't a sprint race or anything like that. And I believe it's been every single year. WK's had Daytona Kart 1974, so it still pulls a lot of numbers. The road race event, which I'll try to maybe pull up the entry list here. We'll take a quick look at that. 570 race entries for that race, pre-entries. People run, they run 2, 3, 4 classes, so you probably have more like 200 to 300 drivers, but that's still the biggest events of the year for karting, and definitely for the road race stuff. The road racing, to touch on that real. Yamaha laid down the headline class, at least for me. I mean, they'll have just at the road races, they will at the sprint track, if not 206. And we'll touch on that for a minute. It's kind of a interesting deal because you really need to you got to have a buddy, or you have to have multiple buddies to even compete at a road course in a 206. I don't know if you paid any attention to that deal, but the thing that is a lot of these series don't want road racing. You're walking bumpers because there's been some serious injuries and some deaths in the past, and of course racing, not in 206 but in other classes. So they don't want you locking bumpers and stuff, but pretty much all the fast guys still do it. And then it comes down to which series are you running and how, what are the officials. Anything. Now WK is typically pretty lax. They kind of let you race, and I would imagine it's going to be a simple. Have what you're going to have in 206 is you've got a lot of race. So you got a couple big groups. You got the Scott Heath group, which is Roll Speed Performance. They're kind of new on the scene. Scott Heath's a big dirt racer for 20 years, and now he's found a deal where he likes doing the road. He's building his own chassis now, and he's got a bunch of customers, and he'll have about 10 carts in the field. GM group, and you have Zach Linzel. And I don't see really any other MGMs on the entry list. There was talk about Dylan Amundsen, possibly some help, but the bottom line is, if Zach doesn't have any help out there, I mean, it's going to be really tough for him to run with the Rolls group. I mean, what are your thoughts on 206 Daytona, the big track, and in road racing in general? I mean, with this whole kind of pushing drama that there's been over the last year. let's do it. But if you want to win, you pretty much have to do it. And then you get these beginners out there that don't have any buddies, and they're like, they're a half a track behind after about a lap or two, which kind of is a shame for them. But I don't know. You have any thoughts on that, Mick?
I mean, I haven't paid too much attention to it. I've been watching, Patrick Olson a little bit because LAD, Scott Grenier, he's a good buddy of mine. He's been tearing it up on that side in the Yamaha class, but when it comes to 206, I mean, you're not going to get rid of the pushing. I mean, that's a factor in that class, whether it be sprint or road racing. I mean, you're not going to tell guys they can't, lock bumpers. I mean, that's like telling somebody they can't smoke or drink. I mean, they're going to do it anyway. I think so, I mean, whoever takes advantage of that the best is going to win. Dylan's a great pusher. Zach's a good pusher. I think if those guys hook up, they could definitely get it done. Not really. I don't know those other guys you were talking about, but I'm sure they're very fast. It's just whoever takes advantage of it the best. They're going to get it done. But, I mean, trying to outlaw you're not going to get very far. I think that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to try to outlaw that. I mean, do they run pushback bumpers too?
They don't, but Margay has announced a rule for this race that they're going to be running the pushback bumpers, I guess, and policing that in the Ignite classes only. So I don't know a whole lot about pushback bumpers and that deal and how that's going to work.
Yeah, I guess you better cinch down the clamps tight.
Would you? I don't
know. Yeah. Do with that.
Kind of an interesting thing because the 206 brings a lot of numbers, but it's been problems at the road race deal with the pushing and all that. But in the Yamaha laydown class, I mean that's a class where they had like 50 entries in it a couple years ago, and they've got about 30 in it this year. Favorites in that would probably be your Randy. Randy's got more wins at Daytona International Speedway than anybody in the history of motorsports. So, and he's getting a little older, obviously now, but he still runs right up front, and he's won this season. So, we'll won both classes last year in Yamaha Senior, and then Patrick Olson on the LAD Coyote. He's one that I'm sure is going to be right up front. And there's a bunch of others that'll be Nate Grindell's really good, and his stepson Kikai Huano. I'm probably not saying that right. Apologies, Kikai, but he runs up front. Colin Jedrzak, he's really good. That I kind of follow because I go to Mid Ohio and Pittsburgh and all those races throughout the year. So I'll be over there at the road race track doing some coverage, videos, and photos of all that before I go over to the sprint in the afternoon. But yeah, I don't know or anything. Go ahead.
You know Chad Dawkins racing road race?
Yes, he is. Yeah. And I forgot to mention.
He could definitely. Yeah,
for sure.
He could definitely. Man, I mean that guy is really knowledgeable. He's helped me quite a bit with some little things with chassis setup, with the OTK stuff here and there, and super knowledgeable guy. I mean, don't put it past Chad Dawkins. I mean, I think he's won down there a couple of times, and he's especially on the road race side, and sprint too. I mean, he's got to figure it out. So Chad Dawkins definitely be somebody to watch.
Yeah. Because I didn't pull up the entry list, but Chad's he won at a couple races, and he'll be absolutely top 3, top 5. That's kind of almost similar to a 206 deal on a sprint track. You get 5 or 6 of them linked together in the draft, and it's going to come it's a strategy deal at that point. It comes down to the last lap and who's going to pull out in the draft and make the move at the right time coming to that tri-oval. And of course, that's a timed event, so you got to have a watch on your cart or a clock on your cart to make sure you know when the last lap's coming.
That's pretty interesting. I've never knew that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been a lot have been going over to run road race events, whether it's in 2-cycle or 4-cycle, and some of these guys get really mad. There's no white flag. They're like, "What? Why don't you guys throw a white flag?" And it's like, well, enduro road racing, this is how, like, since before you were born. I mean, they're not going to just change it for you this weekend. for it because it'd be kind of hard to figure out, number one, because it's a timed race. I mean, but no, the sprint guys they have a tough time with that. But no, there's no. You have to have you have to have a clock on your cart somewhere, whether on your wrist or whatever, or your steering wheel is steering fairing somewhere to know basically what time is, obviously, and then kind of be able to the last lap is and then make your move. So it's
It's
like you should get
it seems
sometime.
yeah, I would want to try it. It seems really fun. Like every time we're down here and we watch it a little bit, it's like it seems just like the ultimate strategy race, kind of like, not quite as intense maybe as the sprint track stuff, but it just seems like a total chess match. I mean, I would try it in a heartbeat. So it seems really cool.
Yeah, I know like Evan Stommer, he's raced. He ran a laydown with the Fulks team a few years ago in group, and I'll have to talk to him and see what he thought about it. I'm sure he liked it, but he's one of the few that go
Mhm.
and did try that. It's that's the laydown Yamaha class or the laydown enduro racing's been around a long time, and they still pull decent numbers, and it's still. And you'd like to see more people get involved, but again, it's not quite as easy as buying a CIK cart, and you can order everything essentially out of a catalog, and you don't have to be any sort of master fabricator or machinist or whatever to go run CIK. And I think that's probably obviously why that's a lot more attractive than running an enduro cart, you would think.
Yeah, don't you have to be basically a fabricator to even get on track in that class, or be just an ace mechanic? And you know, I mean, that doesn't seem like very appealing to the normal person. But I mean, if you're talented enough as a team, I mean, that would seem pretty appealing then. But it's not like the Briggs thing in CIK Sprint where you just like buy a normal go kart, pull the rope, put some gas in it, and go, and pay your local shop to put it together. You know, for
That's
inexpensive amount. Or
yeah. Ladies, I mean, I don't know what to do if there was just more people that knew how to weld and fabric today. But back then it's like everybody kind nowadays it's like, well, who can we pay to run under a 10, or what's the easiest way to get into it, to where I don't, I'm a
uh,
perfect example. I'm not a
it's
fabricator, so it'd be tough for me to get like a
yeah,
lay down in cart and myself and show up to the racetrack, whereas it'd be a lot easier to get a 206 cart on a motor and do some of that stuff and hook up cable and stuff and just show up and run that, and that would be quite a bit easier for a guy kind of the way it's been going.
yeah, it just seems like, man, these days, like you said, it's so hard to find a welder or fabricator. It's like when something bad happens nowadays, oh my God, I gotta weld this or I gotta weld that. Everybody makes such a big deal about it. I mean, it's just racing. I mean, there's been many times where, I mean, I've won races with broken C tabs that aren't even attached to the go kart, and it really didn't even make a difference. You weld the stuff back up and go. I mean, it's karting, man. So yeah, I mean the cart. Well, I got an interesting story, but I mean the cart that I won the grands on was welded about 8 times throughout the year.
Oh, really?
Me and my buddy Chris Serdenick, who co-owns AEM with me, we've run that thing in the ground. I mean, just practice, 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 training, 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 coaching. That cart's probably got about 500,000 miles on it, and man, by the time we got to the grands, we had about every weld on it that was humanly possible, and they just barely held up. So, I mean,
No
people
kidding.
just make a big deal out of stuff that, if you're a racer and you learn the trade and everything, it's really not that big of a deal. So, weld it up and go again. I mean, it's racing, man. You got to learn how to do that stuff, or at least have a good team around you that'll help you and all that. But you see some amazing stuff the years that you race and go through some crazy things that you think you would never go through, with equipment, especially. The stigma of, oh, I gotta have a new cart and blah blah blah. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you don't quite need that, but it's everybody wants to always, well, he's on a new cart or he's on a new engine, blah blah. That's what won the race. That's 9 times out of 10. That's not what won the race. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
I would agree with you there. That's it's good to hear you say that for sure. I mean, it gives lower buck guys a chance. You know, you don't have to go out and buy a new cart every 6 months to run up front, and that's especially in Briggs, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean Briggs, we've had guys on the team that have taken, year old Tony carts or bought, older carts than that from us, all OTK, and they'll go out and win their local club or regional or run up front in national stuff. I mean, you don't need that new equipment. It's nice if you can afford it and it might get you that extra bit. But, if you spend your money in driver training and just pounding laps and learning good habits, not bad habits, and learning setup knowledge from the right people and investing in good power, competitive as everybody else, all you need is something that's close to the next guy at the front, and the rest is all on you. I mean, I feel so guilty whenever I lose a race, especially in Briggs or KA. Like if I run second or third, like I know it's on me. Like I messed up. My racecraft wasn't on point that day. I either missed a corner that I should have hit, or I didn't make a pass when I should have. I mean, I put all the blame on myself. I don't come back to my pit and say to my dad, you messed up, or tell Chris, you messed up, or I didn't have enough power, my chassis sucks, blah blah. It's like my dad always tell me, show me what bolt sucks. I mean, show me. I mean, it's not that, man. It's all the guy in the seat. You have to buy the right equipment, no doubt, but does it have to necessarily be new or head and shoulders above? No. Your seat time and driver training and everything you put into it, your gym time. I mean, if you choose to, I mean, it's all what you put into it to become, a top guy or win at the national level. It's all what you make of it, man. I mean, you could be lazy, sit on the couch and blame everybody and run 15th the rest of your life, or you could put the hard work in, pound as many laps as possible and surround yourself with the best team, and eventually you're going to win. So it's all hard work.
And one thing I noticed about you guys when I was at Cup Kart Spring Nationals back at Charlotte, and I was running a GoPro. We ran a GoPro on your cart, and it was first time, I'd known you for a lot of years, you and your dad, but it was my first time really being around your tent and your pit area. And the thing I noticed is how competitive you were, even on practice day. I mean, it was like every single session was a race to you. I mean, and you would come in and you'd debrief with your dad for a minute, and your dad obviously was having to work on other people's go-karts and stuff, but the first thing you would do is after talking with your dad is you'd look at race monitor and look at the times for that session, and if you weren't P1, I'm happy. And I was a little like, I was like, wow, I mean, he wants to win every he's on the track, whether it's a heat race, a final, or a practice session. And I mean, I got to imagine that that comes with being a really top racer. I mean, you want to be fastest every time you're on the track. Am I wrong?
Yeah, every time I'm on track, I want to be the best. I mean, straight up, whatever it takes to, whether it's find the right line or just, set up debrief. I mean, and I put a lot of the blame on myself. A lot of times I'll just be like, man, I didn't get it done that session. I didn't hit my apex. I didn't make that pass when I needed to. I mean, I'm my own worst critic, and I'm really, really hard on myself. And, it almost takes away the joy and satisfaction when I do win, but it just comes with it. I mean, it's when my dad and I come to the track, it's like, it's us against the world, and we're gonna go for it. We want to win every single session, and that's just the racer mentality, I guess, if you want to win. So I mean, it's part of the deal, man. I mean, I can't just sit back, relax, and say, oh, I'm happy I was fifth that session. No, I'm not happy. I'm not. If I'm second or third on podium, I'm not happy. So I mean, it's the day I don't feel that way is the day I just might as well just quit and go do something else, take up bowling or
So I mean, even first session when you get out, what is it, Wednesday? I mean, your first session, is that kind of a shakedown? Is it going to be like a shakedown session, or is it just balls to the wall, like right out of the
something.
box?
I'm going to go out and drive as hard as I possibly can to the grip level that the track is going to take. That's it, man. Then we'll work from there. So I don't believe in taking it easy. I'm going to go out and find the grip, and that's it, man, and just go from there. So just keep up with the track, and then just work on my driving. It all comes down to the driving at the end of the day.
And what are you running? Are you riding a Tony kart? Or are you on an EOS kart, or are you running at Daytona?
I'm on an EOS.
Okay.
I finally got a go kart for this race. First time I've had a brand new go kart in a while, so I'm pretty excited.
Nice. And all your customers like they're out the EOS chassis as well.
Yeah, no, so we got a mix. They're gonna be on Cosmics, and then we got some other guys on Red Speeds, and then we got some other guys on EOSs. So it's a good mix. I mean, it's all good equipment. It's kind of just pick what color you want, and there you go. So they're all the same go karts, and you know that spiel. So, but yeah, it's gonna be exciting, man. So I'm really looking forward to it. Can't wait to get out there. Love Daytona. It's one of the favorite tracks of the year. So yeah, should be great. So
Is this your first race since the Grands, or have you?
this is my first race since the Grands, but ever since the Grands, I've been in the seat probably 2 to 3 times a week in a KA cart before it snowed. I would say the end of November is when like they shut me down in a cart because I was out there quite a bit, getting more and more and more seat time in the KA. So I didn't do quite as much racing as I wanted to last year, but we had to take care of as the business grew, I had to take on some more roles and such, and help out quite a bit more with the divisional stuff. And we saw some good results from that. And then when the big races came, they put me in the field, and we had some good success. So we're looking to keep going into Daytona. So pretty excited.
That's So what are you gonna do the next couple of days? You guys still have prep to do on the carts, or are you just kind of hanging out tomorrow before parking day on the 27th?
We don't believe in prepping carts at the track. We do all our work in the shop and get everything done. So this is like our first little mini vacation we've had in probably the last 15 or 16 months. So we're taking time and enjoying the next 2 days or whatever it is, and just kind of taking it easy, which I think is kind of nice because it builds up the anticipation before your race instead of that burnt out feeling you get sometimes. Oh, another race, another race, another race. So it's kind of a nice feeling just actually doing nothing for once a little bit. So
Go down
the beach. Check out the Ocean Deck if you haven't been down there. It's a pretty good
bar
restaurant
down there on the
yeah,
probably stay by the track more.
Yeah, we went there today, man. It was pretty cool, except the breeze was like it felt like -20 when it come at your face.
I bet it did. And then what do you do after you're done it? What do you do the week before? You're staying down for Jacksonville, right? Is that correct? What are you going to do that week in between?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. Probably when I'm not racing, my job is to test go-karts. So usually just find a local track nearby and go test some stuff and get everything kind of ready to go for the next race that we're kind of built and planned for. And I'm not racing Jacksonville, so when it comes to that, I'm just basically going to test go-karts and keep myself busy for a few days. I guess stay in the gym, and that's really about it. Be kind of a normal person for a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah, well, I think
it's probably a good time to wrap it up. We've been jabbering away here for over. Want to thank you for coming on, Mick. Being Christmas night. No, I know you probably got other things you could be doing right now, but thanks for joining us, joining me tonight. And you're going to be a on the show. It's kind of still figuring out the format for this Kart Lounge live deal. We'll see kind of what the numbers bring in for this show and try to make some adjustments. And in a week or two, got some cool things coming up. I got a brand new logo for
the works.
Mick has seen it and gave me his thumbs up on it, and everybody else that's seen it thinks it's really cool. So working on and getting a new logo, new brand going for Kart Lounge, get apparel going in 2023, hats and shirts and decals. Want to get visor strips, stuff like that, just to get the name out there a little bit more and keep pushing it forward. So continue to try to make a living in the karting industry like me and Mick and a bunch of other people do. Anyway, just want to thank us tonight.
In a couple of days.
All right, man. Thank you for having me on. Merry Christmas, everybody, and happy holidays. Thank you.
All right. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year in about a week. And if you're going to be in Daytona, we will see you. I'll be driving down there tomorrow. So we'll see everybody on the 27th for parking day, practice on the 28th, and then race days the 29th and 30th. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great night. I appreciate you tuning in. If you wouldn't mind, and like the page and all that fun. Everyone.
Thanks, Mick.
Thank you.